This is the Town of Ayer Zoning Board of Appeals, Wednesday, August 17th, 2022. Remote participating meeting agenda. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, in accordance with Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, OML, public bodies otherwise governed by the OML are temporarily relieved from the requirements that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate and alternative means. This meeting will be live on Zoom. The public may participate remotely by joining Zoom, meeting ID 857-9728-7177, or by calling 312-626-6799. For additional information about the remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager, at atm@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 100 prior to the meeting. Let's call it 6 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I'd like to make
a motion to approve the agenda. Oh,
yeah, I'd like to amend that agenda for 1 minute, please. I'd like to amend the agenda so that I may, or Carly may introduce our new admin before we go on to the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joining us tonight on Zoom is Samantha
Carly.
Benoit.
I made a motion. One of them's got to amend.
Oh, sorry.
so moved.
Thank you.
Seconded.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye,
Mark
Ron
Gibbons,
DeFilippo.
aye.
Ron Ellis, aye.
Sam Goodwin, aye. Jess?
Jessica Gino, aye.
Thank you. Okay, Carly.
Sorry. So Samantha Benoit is joining us. She's our new administrative coordinator. Samantha's has started work here last week. She was at the library for quite some time. She'll be on the 3rd floor of Town Hall, and she'll be covering the building department, zoning board of appeals, and the board of health. So I just wanted everyone to say hi to Sam, who's here joining. She's with us tonight. So thank you, Samantha, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Thank you. All
Thank
right.
you.
Next item on the agenda is the continued public hearing, application for comprehensive permit, MGL 40B, section 2023, Neighborhood of Affordable Housing, Inc. Where's my note? Stand by. To make sure I get this straight. We have, do we have a presentation by BCS? Is that BSC? Is that correct? No?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, what we were going to do first is, as you know, the traffic study has been submitted to the town. We will be getting that peer reviewed. We do not have a peer review consultant on board yet, as the RFQs were just due today. But Stephanie, I know you wanted them to give an overview of the traffic study. And then what we'll do after that is go over the comments from NOAA from
From the town's letter.
from the town department heads, their responses, and
Okay,
then we'll take some public input.
fair enough. Good enough. Okay. So,
I would hand it over to Stephanie from NOAA.
very good. Stephanie, you're up.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As was just kind of previewed, back July 27th, I believe, the traffic report was submitted and it will be peer reviewed, but we have our traffic consultant from BSC here this evening to basically, you may have already reviewed it, but to kind of walk you through the key points of it. And then should the board have any specific questions that they want to ask, we're happy to address them this evening. And then from there, we can move on quickly to the responses that we submitted relative to the department head comments. Again, if there's any further input, I don't believe that any additional department head comments have been received since last week. Okay,
No.
thank you, Carly. And then from there, if the board wants to discuss peer review, I'm not certain, or just take public comments, but again, we're happy to respond to any questions.
Fair enough.
Board. And without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Sam to walk you through his traffic assessment.
That one. Okay. Go right ahead.
Oh, sorry, wrong one. Yeah.
Okay, you just have to give me a second here. Just got a warning that my battery was running low. Sorry.
I have those days when my battery's running low.
Yeah, I just have to turn something on. Yeah, it's all good. So, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my name is Sam Ofei-Addo. I'm a traffic engineer at BSC Group. And BSC was asked to do a traffic study for the proposed residential development at 65 Fitchburg Road. So this graphic here just shows a general overview of the site. Here is the project site on Route 2A, Fitchburg Road, which is under Mass DOT's jurisdiction. And we looked at intersections in close proximity to the site. And that was looking at Route 111 or Groton School Road at Fitchburg Road, and also looking at Groton Shelley Road at Fitchburg Road. So we look at those two locations, and we performed traffic counts at those two locations during the weekday. That's when schools were in session, when we did the count in the morning between 7 and 9, and also between 4 and 6. And the numbers you see here represent the peak 1 hour during the peak commuter period. So you could, the AM ones or the morning ones, without the parentheses, and then the PM numbers, we show them in those brackets. And we also did a 48-hour count that shows the total number of vehicles traveling on Route 2A in a 24-hour period. So it's a little over 7,000 vehicles, 7,800 vehicles on Route 2A. So I think that is the context of what is there today. And we also looked at crashes. We evaluated the safety conditions along Route 2A. One, we measured speeds as part of the traffic counts, and the posted speed on Fitchburg Road is 40 miles an hour. And the speeds, we tend to look at what they call the 85th percentile speed, which is more like the maximum speed above which only 15% of the people are really going faster. And it was 41 miles per hour, heading in this westbound direction, and also 39 heading in the eastbound direction. So speeds that we measured during that time were right in line with the posted speed.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Where did you take the count? Was it before or after the supermarket?
It was in the vicinity of the site, so it's after the supermarket heading
So-
west or
So,
northwest.
so that's what I was asking, if the supermarket count would have influenced the traffic flow through there that you counted.
Not really, because this is over 48-hour period, and it measures everything even through the dead of the night.
Mhm.
So it doesn't, it wouldn't affect.
All right.
Yeah, it's definitely far away from that driveway.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So then, as part of the traffic analysis, we looked at the proposed project. What is it going to add to the traffic on the roadway? And we use, as part of the industry practices, is to use the Institute of Transportation Engineers, a trip generation manual that would compare the trips generated by similar developments. I mean, it has over 1,000 different uses in it. And for the proposed residential development here, the proper category is a multifamily residence. So we look at that, and based on ITE, it shows here that the project will be generating a total of 56 trips in the morning. You have 43 trips exiting and 13 entering, because in the morning most people leave, and also in the evening the people are returning. So you have 42 entering and 24, and this is all within 1 hour. And we distributed the traffic coming out of the site on the roadway network based on the counts that we had taken at these two locations here. We look at what the existing travel patterns were, and the trips were generating in accordance with the existing patterns. So you can see here that essentially in the morning, we have most of them going down Park Street, and just a few, maybe 5 of them turning onto Groton School Road, and also you see that very few people are coming. We are seeing coming through here because not too many people are actually entering the site in the morning. In the evening, it's only 5 coming down from that direction. Then the next step in all this is to look at what the future, as part of the standard traffic study regimen, we're supposed to look at 7 years, project the traffic 7 years into the future to see what the potential or what the projected volumes could be 7 years out. And we use what we call the growth rate, which is based on, we look at historical data around the area or on DOT's roadways, and also look at projects that have been approved, under construction, or yet to be constructed, but yet to be occupied, in that area. And we added all those things into the volumes and added the trips from the project site to it. And this was the resultant traffic volumes as we showed here. So this includes the project trips in the future volumes. And with that, we did an analysis to show what we call the level of service. And this is really a qualitative way to look at how the intersections will be functioning, how they are functioning today, how would they function in the future if the development is not constructed. That's the no build conditions. That's future 2029 without the project, and the build conditions is future 2029 with the project added to it. The level of service is represented by like a letter grade, goes from A to F. A being the best, means that there's no delay, that you really don't stop at all. And then as the level of delay increases, the letter decreases till you get to F. And then F is also, it's a very large, there's anything for unsignalized locations where there are no signals here, any delay greater than 50 seconds shows as F. And it's really showing it as the fact that people coming down Groton School Road have to wait, or they have to wait for traffic on Route 2A to go through before they can enter the stream of traffic. That is why you have this F. And once we saw this, we actually went there. A colleague of mine went there to observe if people were actually waiting for that long to enter. And our observation was the intersection function may be actually better than how the model was showing it, because the model is calibrated in such a way that any slight delay, you can even have just one vehicle and it will throw the intersection into F. And as I was showing you earlier on, we're really not, sorry, let me just go back. If you look here, the addition, there's really not a whole lot of traffic being added to Groton School Road. So the existing condition is already showing an F, and then any addition to it continues to show the level of service F. So one of the things that we looked at is what can be done to reduce the number of single occupancy vehicles. That's one thing. How do we reduce the number of traffic, or what ways can be done to improve the overall traffic conditions in the vicinity of the site? Ayer has a commuter station with the commuter rail, going into Boston, and one of the ways to do it, and actually on Route 2A, there is this, there's even a sign pointing people to the train station. And it's something that we are recommending that the management should encourage people who will be living in this place, if they are working, Cambridge, Boston, or whatever, to let them know, be aware of the train and to use it as well. Another recommendation is to provide bicycle racks on the side. It's currently wide enough shoulders on Route 2A, and also from Park Street intersection all the way into downtown, they have shoulders where they've marked bicycle lanes. So encouraging people to use bikes, having bike racks on the side would help those who choose to ride their bikes. And this no idling sign, really, it's from an environmental perspective to reduce the emission of gases when people just sit there and then they just let their engines run. And it's really part of the general TDM support, encourage people to use alternative modes of transportation. There is currently sidewalk from or up to the supermarket. And one of the things that we were researching and we continue to look at it is on MassDOT's project website, there is a project that had been proposed for Route 2A in that area. We're trying to track it down to see what actually they were proposing, because it is one of what they do talk about sidewalks and things in the general description. And our recommendation is for the town to coordinate with DOT, because this is their road, in extending the sidewalk along Route 2A, even to and beyond the site. So that is one of the recommendations that we think it will help, and it will also, people will walk to the supermarket, they'll walk to town, and it will definitely reduce the traffic volumes. And the last thing I want to touch on is parking at the site. Now, the proposed 106 unit development is, or the development is proposing to have 157 parking spaces, and it comes to a ratio of 1.48 spaces per unit. data from IT, and this is from their parking generation manual, which has data for all sort of parking demands. And for a use like this, they look at the average rate and the 85th percentile rate. The 85th percentile is really more like the maximum usage of the site. And the average rate is 1.21 spaces per unit. And then for the 85th percentile, the parking demand is 1.52. So this site is providing 1.48 spaces per unit. So in comparing that to the IT data, you can say that this site, what is being provided falls right within the IT recommendations.
So excuse me, the 157 on-site parking places, does that encompass both the first and second phase, or the first phase only?
I believe this is the entirety. It's for all the 106 units.
It's for the entire first and second phase.
Yeah.
That's my understanding, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And with that, and that is my presentation. So I will stop sharing.
All right,
Hi, could I ask a question?
by all means, Deputy.
Thank you. I apologize. I'm in the back parking lot here. So when you were discussing, Sam, the study, what was the dates of the study?
Or the day that we did accounts, we did it on June, and then I have the report here. We did actually write it in the report.
July 26th, what mine says.
So July 26th.
No, the study, the date, maybe that's the date you received it, but the date for the count was June. So I want to, it was June 14th and the 15th, June 14th.
I asked that because obviously in our town, we can see a difference of the motor vehicle traffic towards the end of the school year. So
Yeah.
I just want to note that. And you also noted, and I wanted to make sure that I was clear, that you had had an account for some of the other businesses that may be in the area looking at the down the road study. And obviously during that period of time, we're seeing construction across the street at the supermarket and that Shop and Save with many other businesses going in there. Was that taken into account?
Yeah, so I think we reached out to the town planner and we were told to add 22 Fishbeck Road. That was the information we got. And we also used what we call a growth rate, like a 1% per year to cover any other potential development. So you add specific projects and then you also apply a growth rate based on all other development, and 1% per year is actually quite significant, saying that every year traffic is going to go up by 1%, for this the 7 years that we projected into the future.
Well, I can say that our population continues to grow here, so I don't think it'd be too off base for us. But thank you for addressing those questions I had.
Oh, you're welcome. Other questions? Okay.
It looks like Dan has his hand up.
BPW director.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. Okay. Dan?
Okay.
Hi.
Hey, I'll just add a little from my background. So my predecessor, he worked very hard to get the sidewalk from Groton School Road down to Shop and Save. A lot of strong arming with DOT. So, the town can assist with extending a sidewalk toward the site, but I don't think it should be totally put on the town. This is part of the applicant's. The applicant is putting the site in place, and we can assist with that. But I do think a sidewalk should go to the site as was recommended. And another thing, the Mass DOT Highway project. So I reached out to MassDOT about that, and the project's been in their system since 2012. And the person I spoke to at MassDOT, who was a project manager, wasn't even aware the project was there. So it appears to kind of just be left out in space. And it has an advertised date of 2050. And they they recently repaved the road about 4 years ago. So I think it's a project that's going to nowhere. It appears. So just a little background about that project they had for the area. It doesn't seem like it's a real project that's going to happen anytime soon.
You know, I wondered about that. That being said, when we look at this, the traffic going in and out of this location, I'm wondering what kind of interface we're going to have with Mass DOT about access in and out of there. I mean, if you go in and out of Lorden or U-Haul, you have trouble getting in and out of there at times because of traffic. And I'm beginning to wonder if they're going to try and if we should consider a third lane, a blinker light, a traffic light, or some respect like that to allow access in and out of there without somebody taking shots in the dark. You know what I mean?
Well, I think too, with what you're saying, sir, my concern is now we're encouraging the pedestrian traffic.
Uh-huh.
And so we're encouraging that, that obviously this is something that DOTs need to be at the table for. Are we going to have a crosswalk? And how, and then because I'll say it, like once people clear the past Tiny's, then they accelerate.
Yeah.
So now we got to slow people down. And I know Dan, I don't know if our DPW director wants to use the word calming anymore than he has lately with traffic, but that is something that I think between, if we're inviting people to use public transportation, use the bicyclists and use the sidewalks, we're going to need crosswalks that are going to encourage people and invite them to a safe location and not into an unsafe location. Because obviously that prior to this, like people would walk to the market, but that was it. There was nothing else. And now we're encouraging them to walk elsewhere. So this is something I think I agree we're going to have to consider between whether it's caution, whether it's lights, whether it's calming methods on the road to make sure people slow down.
Would that,
Yeah,
I'm wondering if that would be considered part of the infrastructure improvement in order to access this project.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
so as I thought I said this is a DOT roadway, and any access, any use of that road by any, whether business or the resident, you need an access permit from Mass DOT.
Right.
So as part of this process, they will have to go to Mass DOT. And if a sidewalk is extended along 2A, they definitely need a crosswalk, at the site. And one of the things that would be necessary would be, because it's a mid-block crossing and people really may not know it is there, they will have to be adequately signed. And there are different ways of alerting people. We have this rectangular rapid flash beacon. This site may qualify for that, but it won't qualify for traffic lights. If you look at the volumes, you don't have adequate volumes to really even have a traffic signal here, but it may qualify for a rectangular rapid flash beacon. So as part of the DOT review, and the fact that this is also a DOT road, I think with all the current infrastructure bills, etc. out there, this actually may be an opportunity for and I'm not saying it should just be put on the town, but I think the town will need to push DOT to have this and done. Because with all they talk about a lot of projects really that they are working on now, and maybe this is one that could still be pushed to the fore, maybe talking to the right people at DOT.
And I think as noted with the amount of traffic that is less now, like during this study, obviously, yes, the end of school and the start of summer, but we are experiencing much less traffic now post-pandemic. Now, obviously, who knows when and if it'll ever get back to what it was prior to, but during those times, and if anyone's tried to go through Park and Main in our town, we know that it can back up quite significantly. So if traffic continues to increase like it was pre-pandemic, those numbers might be able to support, many of these ideas that you have.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I don't see anybody's hand up. I don't see anything to you, Carly. All right, Samuel, thank you very much.
Ron,
Yeah,
I think
Ron.
Hello. How much of an assumption is there for public transportation to be used by these residents for their daily work? And it seems like this could be very different in another area, even if you in an urban area, obviously you have local bus lines, you have many other things. You have a culture that people tend to walk up the streets. And out here, we're still in the Wild West here a little bit. And I don't see that many people being allured to the public transportation, especially when the walk is over a mile. I see, if anybody's going to do that, they're going to hop in their vehicle and do that. So that would add to the count. And I'm just wondering, as other things, the traffic flow here is very important. We talk about, adding, any kind of more congestion here will have a lot of influence on traffic flow, albeit maybe at the rush hours mostly. But anything you do, if you don't have turning lanes and things like that, out of this particular project, if people are coming in and out at the same time the factory across the street is working, I know there's many things that can't be adequately anticipated, but I'm just wondering, when you go to the tables from these traffic studies that you use, is there any deference given to the type of environment you have? Is there local public transportation available versus somewhere out in and essentially we're almost in a, well, you wouldn't call it a rural area, but we're out in the, we're not part of the city. We're not the same as a city or even a town, a suburban area closer to Boston. And I'm just wondering what,
I think it does fall under suburban, Ron. We're not rural, that's for damn sure.
Well, maybe classification, but we're a different animal from, let's say, where I grew up in Watertown and Belmont,
Right.
Where you do have, local transportation as well as the commuter, now they have commuter rail in Belmont, but, you have an alternatives.
Yeah, you have the trolleys. Yeah.
Yep. Here you've got to go a long way to get to the public transportation.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, if I can respond to that, the first thing is,
go ahead.
The analysis that we did not discount it for public. This is assuming that everybody is driving. So if we had done the same for, say, Boston, Watertown, or Belmont, we have something called a mode split, where we would account for those who walk, those who take the bus or take the subway. This is the full, assuming that everybody drove. So the numbers you saw did not discount any transit. What I was talking about in the TDM was to say that in order to help, further reduce whatever we were proposing, that if you put in these measures, it could help reduce it somehow. But that wasn't what was used in the analysis. So we're not discounting. We're not discounting at all. There are also specific volume thresholds. I hear talking about needing a left-hand lane or a turn lane. There are certain specific volumes that you need to have in order to justify, let's say, a left-hand lane on Route 2A into the site. And you may need about, well over 100 trips per hour to making the left turn into the site to have a separate left-hand lane. So this is something that DOT wouldn't even allow for, a left-hand lane on their roadway. So I just wanted to put those numbers out there. I think it's actually more than 100, maybe 100 or 200 vehicles per hour making in that left-hand lane for it to really require a dedicated left-hand lane. So that is the reason. If there should be a crosswalk here, I think it would definitely have to go with that rectangular rapid flashing beacon, which would come on when somebody is crossing and pushes it, and it warns the driver of the presence of a pedestrian in the crosswalk. So those two would have to go in tandem. If it gets to that point. But that is what should be seen as one of the mitigation for this location here for pedestrians.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Thank you for making that clear what went into the study. I was just concerned that it was somewhere, probably your firm is based mainly in the Boston area, and it might have been biased towards that type of. It's a different place.
Well, I think maybe as a background, I actually did some master plan study in Ayer, maybe, I don't know, about 10, 15 years ago. We also do work in Devon, we do work in Western Mass. So we may be in Boston, but we work everywhere.
Okay, thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'd suggest we move on to the town letter, the responses to the town letter.
Sure. Just one clarification on Sam's that I think this is the case, but just it may be of note. I don't know how much note, but when you projected the traffic associated with the project, there was no deduction for the existing traffic because it's an existing developed site. So my understanding is at BSC. So the numbers may be slightly over because there was no correction for the traffic associated with the existing uses. That was never drawn out. So to make it more conservative. Sam, am I right on that?
That is correct, that the existing uses at the site, although we counted it as part of what is there today, when we did a trip generation for the future, we did not discount it. So yes, it's already built in, and then we added the new ones on top. So it is conservative. Yeah.
Thanks for
Mr.
that.
Chairman,
Sir,
I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but since we were talking about parking, when I read through the application, that there are comments in there about the community building is going to have a pool and it's going to have all this stuff, and it's worded as open to the public. And I'm concerned about how much more parking demand is going to be open if they open that community center to the public.
I think, short answer to your question, John, I think we're not at that point. I think when the community center, which comes under phase 2, when that comes up, I think that's the point, that's where we'll address it.
Okay, well, we were talking about parking there, so I just want to make that concern and put it on the table that I'm a little concerned about that.
He used the parking identifier as sort of a tracking vehicle for vehicles going in and out of there. So if you have X amount parked there, you're going to have a certain amount going in and out.
Yeah.
So I think he used the parking spots as a basis versus how many people are going to be living there. So it took it from that way. That's the way I took it anyway. I think that's the way they did it.
Yeah.
I'm looking for, Carly, where did you sent us that, the response, the town letter response, right? What date was that?
Yesterday, but I can share my screen and pull it off the website if it's easier.
Why don't we do that, and then
Good idea.
we'll go through it. We'll hit the highlights and see if we have any discussion as we go through there.
Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yes.
So, Mr. Chair, maybe if Stephanie wanted to just maybe go over to some of the high points, she had sent the letter over yesterday.
That's fine. Stephanie, would you do that, please?
Absolutely. The letter is under BSC's letterhead, but let me walk you through it. And if I need any technical, I'm going to call upon Taylor Dowdy from BSC, who you heard from at the initial public hearing.
Yep.
So what we did was compiled the department head comment letters that were received and tried to set forth, just for your ease and review, what the comment had been, and then the response. Some of them at this point, and we
Excuse me.
recognize.
These are responses to what? The application?
Correct, when the applicant submitted to the town its application, within 7 days, copies of the application were submitted to all department heads, and then the department heads submitted back to the board their preliminary comments.
Okay,
on
thank
the
you.
project.
Okay,
And so what we've attempted to do for the board's ease is to reproduce the comment and then provide a response. And, with the understanding that this likewise, once the board identifies a peer review consultant, this may be a useful tool for them as well to consider, because then they can have kind of in one fell swoop the department head's initial comments together with the response. So with that being said, the first comment had been the town managers, basically just saying that the select board and town manager were supportive of affordable housing. They recognize the need. So nothing more to be said there other than that's acknowledged and we agree. The health agent identified that the area is in a light industrial area with a number of units that are relatively close to a Fitchburg Road, and had inquired whether there would be considerable dust, odor, noise complaints, and how was the trash to be handled? Would it be fenced in? Taking the last one first, the trash, it's shown on the materials and layout plan. That's the BSC plan where the trash area is, and that will be fenced in. Relative to kind of the project locus, so it's actually within 3 zoning districts. So it's the light industrial, general business, and residence A2. But the majority of the building envelopes, if you will, and the work to be done on the site would really be within the portion that's general business. And somewhat similar to any sort of construction site, prior to construction taking place, the contractor would be required to prepare a construction management plan that would be implemented while construction is moving forward. So to kind of minimize dust, noise, odor. And then generally also there's a meeting with the building inspector and other applicable departments to kind of review that and make certain if there needs to be a police detail or whatnot to ensure that there's a minimization of impacts during the construction phase. Then from there, Department of Public Works had a few comments. First, which I think we've somewhat touched upon in Sam's presentation relative to Fitchburg Road being a DOT state highway, and that, impacts would need to be coordinated and reviewed, in accordance with Mass DOT. And as Sam somewhat had highlighted, we acknowledge that, but as we had previously touched upon, this may be a good opportunity to kind of open up between the town, DOT, and even the developer to have a dialogue as to what can kind of take place there. The second comment is in a similar vein. All infrastructure improvements comply with DPW DOT requirements. Again, acknowledge that. Third, the DPW has included an allowance for this size project in its water and wastewater capacity planning. We acknowledge that. That's great. And then fourth, they touched upon the waivers, and there were 2 that DPW specifically touched upon. One was the connection waiver. As we discussed at the initial hearing, the applicant seeking a waiver for the connection fees for both water and sewer, and the DPW ran a preliminary calculation suggesting that it would be a total of 182 bedrooms with a water connection fee of $273,000 and sewer connection fee of $327,000. So the response that we've had, and we recognize that this was an ongoing dialogue with the board when we get to reviewing the waivers, but we would highlight that, as we've said before, the project here it's going to be a 100% affordable project, and it's not being proposed by by a for-profit entity, but rather a community development corporation, a nonprofit entity, seeking to, very much boost and improve the quality and the quantity of affordable housing in Ayer. And we would like to work with the town to work towards making that happen, making the budget for the project work. And then also, considering what are other priorities that the town may want to consider in terms of money, and if it can give a waiver for this, maybe there's more money in the budget for something else that's important to the town and the board. Two things I would note that's not specifically mentioned in our response is, I believe the total number of bedrooms is slightly off by the DPW's calculations. It's slightly higher, 194, 196 maybe the number. So just when we get to it, we can talk about that. And then the other point that I haven't had a chance to look into, but the $1,500 per bedroom, $1,800 for sewer, that was based on fiscal year 23. And I don't know what those numbers were, if they were the same for 2022. Here, the project was, the application was submitted prior to that publication date. So if the numbers were different, it may be a lesser number. I could only find on the town website the 2016 numbers and then the fiscal year 2023. So just as a matter of clarification, and we can work through that with DPW just to make certain we know exactly what that number is. But again, our preliminary response is we would like to work with the town to negotiate a waiver. If the board's not inclined to a full waiver, maybe we can continue the discussion. And again, just highlighting the fact that the project here is 100% affordable and being advanced by a nonprofit. So, and then the second waiver comment was just that Public Works didn't notice a stormwater bylaw waiver request. We are going to go back and look at that. And as with all 40B projects, the waiver list kind of gets refined as the process moves forward. So in our next update of it, we will include that and we can have that discussion more fully and probably a better time once you have the peer review on board. So, and then comment 5 from DPW was that granite curbing should be required at all radii. And BSC, with this response, we submitted 4 updated sheets. So if you look at sheet C102, the granite curbing has been provided now at the entrance radii and the radii at the main intersection. So that's C102. If you have any questions about that, Taylor is here so he can respond to that. And then the 6th comment dealt with the sidewalk along the frontage in connection to the shop and save should be required. Again, this kind of dovetails into the discussion that we just had with traffic. And then again, just, this does relate to an offsite improvement on a state highway. And, while the complete streets it's kind of a town focused, it does seek to have cooperation with private developers. And so we think that, kind of working through this process, and if there's an ability for any sort of mass works funding even to help move that forward, I think that could be potentially a win-win for everybody. The 7th comment from Public Works is that the parking access driveway width of 20 feet should be increased to 24 feet. So at the entrance drive, if you look at the plan, the access drive is actually 22 feet wide. And then as it heads kind of back, it does slightly narrow to 22 feet and or 21 and 20 feet, kind of as it's near that rear portion of the phase 2 building. But the aisle widths within the surface parking areas to the east and the west of that main access drive, they provide for 20-foot widths, and that's in adherence with the minimum width for 2A traffic under 9.15B subpart 1 of the bylaw. And then likewise, it's noted one of the additional plans we submitted was a fire truck turning analysis. So that should be on, I don't think it has a sheet number, so it's just labeled fire truck turning plan to show that a fire truck can navigate around the site.
And Stephanie, can I just jump in? I just want to show people on the town website, we have a whole page dedicated on the zoning board page. On this, you just click Air Commons. So all the revised plans that Stephanie's speaking about are here on the website. Everything we've got from NOAA is all here. So I just want to, people are looking for these revised plans. We have them separately listed out for everyone.
Carly, did we get the set of plans we asked for early on?
Yep,
Or you have them?
yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you're back in town, just come grab them.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Stephanie.
No, thank you. That's a great point. And actually, Mr. Chairman, that's a good point too. The 4 updated plans that we submitted, we just submitted by PDF. So they're just the 8.5 by 11. If you want us to submit for the board, the larger copies of those as well, we're happy to, we'll pop those in the mail yet this week to you.
I thought we had asked for the couple sets of the full size.
You did, and we did submit those. It's just those 4 plans were attached to our response letter.
I see. Okay, okay.
Right. So what we'll do is we'll submit full size or full, I think you wanted both full and half size, so we can submit that. So you have those.
You need, yeah, I need the revisions to go along with the plans. Yes.
Exactly. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you. Moving on, comment 8, DPW had asked whether there were going to be any speed bumps through the project site. The answer to that is no, there aren't any planned at this time. And then next, a question relative to where the mailbox would be located. So those would be in the community building. And just a clarification, I think it was mentioned earlier that the community building would be within phase 2. I believe that's within phase 1. I'm sure that Annika Lambert from NOAA is here. She'll correct me if I'm wrong with that, but the community building was part of phase 1.
Excuse me, did you have to talk to anyone at the post office about a mail room or post boxes or mail delivery? Did you have to clear anything with them?
I will defer to Taylor, I think, if he's spoken with postal.
Yeah, as we get closer to construction, there are some standards that the U.S. Postal Service has for mail delivery, and we have not had any conversations with them to date. Typically, they don't even want to talk to you really until you're about to hand over the first key to the first apartment, and then they finally say, "Okay, this is the type of mailbox they want." But long story short, yes, we will coordinate with the post office to make sure we meet all their requirements and they're satisfied with the mail delivery system.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
To the DPW's 10th comment, they had asked to see proposed lighting on a photometric plan. We've not yet presented that plan. We will do that. So just to confirm that. And then they had asked to see the proposed plantings on a planting plan that does exist within the original submittal set. Just drawing your attention to sheet L300. There's a planting plan with proposed plantings listed on that. And does the site have an existing septic system? And BSC reached out to the Neshoba Associated Board of Health that they did not have any records of a septic system on the property. But there is a 500-gallon pit that appears to have last been pumped about 4 years ago in 2018, located at 63 Fitchburg, which is Sydney Landscape's street address. So while we're 65, I guess it's 6365. But any septic system, if it's not known to exist, but if there is one encountered, then during construction, it's going to be removed for kind of Title V standards. Next, Public Works inquired whether the property would be managed by a real estate management company or a homeowners association. It will be a private property management company, anticipated to be PB Properties. And then there were some water and sewer utility comments that were raised. The first one, that water and sewer utilities on the site are to be privately owned and maintained. The DPW will not take ownership of the wastewater pumping station, collection system, and pumping system. That includes the force main, and then the water system components, hydrants, fire lines are also to be privately owned and maintained, which we acknowledge that. And the second comment relative to water and sewer systems is the water system design isn't complete at this point, and that the applicant must submit water hydrant flow testing data, and it's not clear where the water system components such as hydrants, valves, curb stops are to be located, and where the street connections will be made, and pipe sizes. In response, BSC has since submitted, together with our letter here, an updated utility plan, updated through 8/15, as well as sheet C203, which is a civil details 4 sheet that shows the hydrants, the valves, pipe sizes, gate boxes, valves. And again, as with all of the updated plans, or we will provide the full size as well, but they are currently available and they are listed on the ZBA's website. The third comment relative to sewer is that the existing house has a water service that needs to be abandoned. That's acknowledged. And the final comment, final water and sewer comment is that pump station design and layout will need to be approved by DPW. And the sewer design and layout would be included within the final plans that would be submitted prior to making an application for a building permit. So generally what happens is during the 40B review process, there are the plans that are, assuming the project is approved, they are the approved plans, and then the final plans are kind of the building permit quality level. So just to provide a little context for that comment. And then lastly, there were 2 DPW comments or Public Works comments on stormwater. So the first one is that there's a significant number of water quality and underground infiltration units which require routine maintenance, and the owner of the long-term pollution and O&M is required to submit an annual report to DPW detailing its stormwater maintenance and inspections. That's acknowledged. You know, that's something that generally would just be a condition of a permit. And then the last one was that the stormwater bylaw wasn't identified in waivers, which we previously addressed. And due to potential redesign stormwater, Public Works didn't perform a detailed review of stormwater calcs. So again, as we said, we will go back, update the waiver list, but we'll confirm that the project will adhere to the Mass DEP stormwater management standards. Moving on to the police chief, there were no comments. The fire chief made a single comment to make sure that the parking lot accommodates turning radius of ladder 1, that's the longest fire truck. BSC reached out, has that information, and the sheet labeled fire truck turning plan shows that the turning analysis has been completed and the site does accommodate the longest truck, that ladder 1. Moving on to Conservation Commission, the commission noted that a notice of intent, also known as an NOI, needs to be filed with the commission as there's going to be work that is within the 100-foot buffer. The response to that is that the NOAA will submit a notice of intent to the commission under the Wetlands Protection Act. There is no need to file it under the local wetlands bylaw because this is a 40B, and so that's part of the comprehensive permitting that the zoning board does. But a notice of intent under the state act will be filed with the Concom. And then lastly, Concom said that, if you could scroll that up just 1 second, thanks. Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program has been contacted, and there is some priority habitat on the site. And a permit from Natural Heritage will be needed to obtain work on site to protect the species found on site. And the commission's requests a copy of the letter from natural heritage. Just basically to kind of fill you in, and if the board wants additional information on the natural heritage, we'll have our kind of wildlife expert from BSC come in at the next hearing if you like, but there has been a preliminary reach out to natural heritage, and we agree that, you know, once we've kind of locked it in, we'll obtain a determination from natural heritage applicable to the project. Based on the preliminary feedback, what we did was the limit of work maintains a 75-foot setback from the protected fern species that's on the site. And if you look at the layout and materials plan, you'll kind of see where that area would be. And then there's a circular kind of 75-foot span around it, showing that how the limits of work are outside of that. And then likewise, the project has been designed such that it's pretty a compact design, so it increases the overall open space of the site, but it also avoids a roadway crossing kind of over that intermittent stream in the back areas of vegetated wetland, so kind of to further protect the turtle habitat. And so there's no structure or parking or access drive that's going to be in either the W or the intermittent stream, but there will be work on the front part within portions of the buffer zone, which we're working through with a notice of intent under the act.
Have you decided not to put the sewage through there?
So I'll let Taylor's not using
Yep.
Taylor explain.
We will have a crossing of the wetland with the force main.
All right, she said there was no work going to be done there, so that kind of surprised me.
I'm sorry, no roadway work. I'm
no,
sorry.
No roadway work. We're not building over it and paving it. It would be a temporary impact to put the sewer pipe through there, and that'll be part of our notice of intent.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I think I did speak too quickly. And then the commission had just noted that the project is designed in 2 phases, both phases having buffer zone disturbance, and the commission would like additional information relative to the phasing and the extent of the work for each phase. For instance, would the site be cleared fully in phase 1 with only construction of the buildings and infrastructure in phase 2? At that point, we're still working with what the work would be within phase 1, and kind of as we work through this and get feedback from peer review, I think that'll help kind of define that so we can provide better information to the board and to the commission. Then lastly, these are less technical, but town clerk's office just supports affordable housing in Ayer. Again, applicant acknowledges that. And economic and community development, they recommend approval. We acknowledge that. And then lastly, the town planner states that very supportive of the proposed Ayer Commons comprehensive permit application and project. The town certainly needs this quantity and quality of affordable housing. I also believe that this development may finally spur redevelopment and improvements to the Fitchburg Road corridor, which is perhaps not one of Ayer's most scenic roads. On initial review, it appears that the general site plan is well laid out and designed, though I desire more time to go through the site plan in depth so as to be able to provide more specific comments. I know the planning board is also eager to review the application and plans and offer its comments, and we've just acknowledged that. So those are, in a nutshell, the comments that have been received by the town department heads together with the applicant's response. We understand that, you know, additional comments are likely to come in, but we wanted to just work through the comments that have been received from the town departments to date. So if the board or any of the departments that may be here have any other follow-up questions, we have pretty much our full project team here this evening. I believe our architect is not here, but we have civil, we have traffic, we have applicant representatives. So, and if there are no other questions, that's our presentation for this evening.
Thank you. Michael, thoughts, questions?
So I think reviewing the comments from the town departments was helpful. Some of the ones that stuck out to me the most were, frankly, the waivers from water and sewer, because I could see a dollar value on it. And it's not an insignificant amount in a town like Ayer. So that's something that I think I'm gonna want to look at, and maybe we can talk to Dan about that, at a future meeting. Just jumping back to the traffic study now that I've had a second to think about it. I think with the number of spots and cars that the study showed going in and out every day, frankly, I don't think the intersection of concern for me is Fitchburg Road, Groton School Road. It's Park Street, Main Street, West Main
Absolutely.
Street, that intersection at the end, because in the morning, you can buzz through that intersection on your way to the train station and to 2, but it's, Park to Main Street. I mean, they have a detail out there every day. And I also appreciate the comments from the deputy chief, because, my wife is a teacher, and I can tell you the last 2 weeks of school generally aren't the busiest, right? Tests are done. Some kids skip field day, and traffic counts can be a little bit down. I think, if it had been the end of June, I'd be more concerned about that, but that's just something that I noted, and I was glad you brought that up. But those are my thoughts on tonight.
Thank you. John?
Well, I had read through all the responses, and they addressed everything that there was. So as far as dealing strictly with what the board submitted in their responses, I have no issues there. But there are, like he says, the waiver issues are probably going to be on the table at some point.
Well, I'm sure they will. Absolutely. When I get back, probably either tomorrow night or Friday, I'll stop by the town hall and pick up the drawings that I want to look at. Ron, what do you think, bud?
No further comments.
All right.
Onward.
Jess?
Yeah, one question I had was, at what point in this process how do we interface with Mass DOT about some of the questions that have been raised here?
I don't think we can. I think the DPW's got to do that.
Okay,
I really don't, everything that I've heard so far and everything that I've read tells us that once you go off the road into the dirt, that's our purview, but that highway belongs to Mass DOT, and the only direct link we have with Mass DOT is the DPW. That's the way I understand it. Dan, is that correct?
Hey, yeah, so typically with like a subdivision project such as Curly Circle, which went through the planning board, what we've done is we've had the applicant reach out to Mass DOT for their comments on the proposed project before we approve the project. But I mean, I certainly can reach out to DOT as well to get them involved if we have to do that.
Okay, thank you.
and had one other comment. I had an email from a resident yesterday, just asking if, when we were doing all the peer reviews that we're doing, were we also doing a study, and this is more for Paul Haverty, were we also doing a study to determine financial impacts of the project to the town, in particular, to the school district and its infrastructure? For 40Bs, is that something that's often peer reviewed?
No, so Mr. Chairman, first of all, the only things that the board has the authority to peer review are studies that are prepared on behalf of the applicant and submitted to the board.
Okay.
You don't have the right to do a peer review in which you're basically going to conduct your own study. And the last thing that you want to do is to look at impacts to schools as part of this process, because that will get you straight down basically a lawsuit from a group basically arguing that you are preventing school-age children from living in town.
Okay.
So fair housing problem that the town does not want to get into. There's no good reason why the town would do that sort of study or request that sort of study.
Okay, and then the other issue this resident raised was the idea of improvements for the town accompanying the project. Now, my own feeling is, yeah, this is a 100% affordable project and from a nonprofit entity, so that doesn't bother me so much. But some people in town will raise the issue of could there be donations to, this person wrote, future senior or community center, roadway improvements, shuttle service for the community, water and sewer investments, or costs associated with additional burden to the school system.
But you're talking about infrastructure improvements in order to substantiate the project, basically.
Yeah,
I mean, that sounds more like a host community agreement for a marijuana establishment, not a affordable housing. No, really. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
that strikes me as, not an affordable housing development.
right. It did make me think, and I'll just throw this out with my hat on as Conservation Commission member as well, is in terms of thinking of things that the town, benefits the town could get from this, is just wondering, and I raised this at a Community Preservation Committee meeting the other night, was if there was some way to, in this project, to consider taking the open space and putting that under permanent conservation protection of some sort. And that I think would be within our purview. It's part of the parcel.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Paul, is that?
So,
in
Mr. Chairman, it's certainly something that you can request of the applicant. I'm not sure it's something that you can require, because you're really talking about a fee interest in property when you're talking about a conservation restriction. However, very frequently, developers are quite happy to restrict open space areas because they know they're not going to be able to do any more development, and it actually reduces the taxable area of the property. So they're frequently open to that suggestion.
Okay. And I'll just add on there that I think Annika mentioned the other night, some possibility in the north end of the parcel above the wetlands towards Isaac Lane, about that maybe being developable at some future point. And so I was thinking of
What?
so at the CPC meeting the other
Okay.
night, asking for funding from CPC. And I don't know if Annika is on here. I see her on the screen.
Yes,
But-
I am. Hello.
Okay, you had mentioned, I think, some possibility of that upper corner of the parcel potentially being open for development at some point down the future.
So that's correct. So that northern portion of the property that's above the wetlands, if you're looking at it from Fishburg Road, that area is technically developable land. It's not something that's feasible for our project because it would require a wetland crossing. And there's just not a ton of space over there that really lends itself well to the development we're creating in the southern portion of the site. However, there were some preliminary conversations before my time, so this would have been back in 2020, between the developer from NOAA that was in charge of the project at the time and some members at the Affordable Housing Trust, just to discuss the feasibility of there being sort of a housing authority project done there by whether by the town or potentially through NOAA as some sort of conduit. But that would be a very future development and not anything that's being considered realistically at this time as part of this zoning.
And then nothing that would be through like a private developer.
No, definitely not a private developer. The land is going to be purchased by NOAA. So if there's any changing of hands, it unlikely at this stage in the game. It's so far out in the future. But generally, I think just as a principle, NOAA's pride is not to allow private developers to come in and dismantle towns and put up expensive things. So I believe the area behind that, so the Isaacs Lane property, which is what the town had suggested extending back into that northern property, is Housing Authority / DHCD property. So we would have to go through plenty of affordable channels to do that. And I know Janet Pondrix has been kind of briefly discussing that.
Let me, excuse me for a minute. we're talking about this entire piece of property.
Mhm.
All right, that's what we're looking at for this project. So if you were to take a separate piece of that property to try to develop it in another project, would that have to be divided? Would it have to be subdivided? This really looks to me like kind of a pretty dirty gray area. So how does that function? I mean, you can't, if we approve the project for that piece of property, does that kill any further development of that property? Or is the door still open for future development? That's a very serious question.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the approval by the board is going to be based upon the application submitted by the applicant and the plan submitted by the applicants.
Right.
Property that constitutes the permit is the property that's shown on those plans and described in that application. So
That's the entire piece. That's the entire parcel.
so that's the entire parcel. If some point in the future, the applicant wants to come back and say that they want to develop another portion of the property, it would require a modification of the comprehensive permit that you have issued. And the only way that a modification, would be approved by the board would be if the applicant can show that somehow the failure to grant the rights to do the further development would render the original project uneconomic.
All right.
Which
Thank-
seems like an unlikely scenario.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we have any questions or comments from the public? Janet, you had your hand up?
Yes, I do. Chairman, thank you. Janet Providakis, I don't want to know 1 Berlina Court. I am a member of the Ayer Housing Authority. I'm one of the commissioners. And I know Annika went ahead and stated that I am, trying to keep emphasizing, if there's anything that you're going to be doing with the sewer line going into Isaac Lane, you need to get on the board now with DHCD because it's just going to take a long time. So we were at our meeting today and I did mention it to Ken Martin and, he definitely extended his hand saying, just go ahead, give him a call and get the conversation started.
Fantastic. Thank you for making that connection. I appreciate it.
No problem. And then during the meeting, picking up where Jess is, had a email from one of the town residents, same thing here, that they're concerned about, the infrastructure. Some of the conversation was, especially now with the water use. So I know that this is something that DPW director, will be able to address later on of, again, you got 106 units going in. What's that going to do with, right now we're in a crunch of water, so with the water and sewer. So hopefully that gets addressed and that people feel a little more comfortable of what's going to, be a drain on our system, even though it's being drained now. So
As I understood the original conversation when they were reviewing the town responses, I thought the water and sewer consumption were included into the current calculations.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, but in terms of how, average residents, self-included, might react would be, okay, it's included in the calculations, but those units aren't in existence yet. And here we are with a significant drought and watering restrictions.
I agree, but the report states that they allowed for it.
Right.
But that doesn't really address our present situation.
Right.
True, but hopefully our present situation is temporary versus permanent.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a number of years that we've, no sprinklers and water bans and all that. So it's not going to go away overnight.
Mm-hmm. True.
So just stating that is a concern.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, too, on top of it, the August 31st meeting, the Ayer Affordable Housing Trust and Committee will be making a presentation with regards to affordability, affordable housing projects within the town. So we'd like to, I think we're going to be on your agenda anyways for the ZBA. All right.
I thought that, Carly, didn't you send out
Yeah,
notes that they were going to have their presentation and we were invited?
Yeah, so it will be a posted agenda of the ZBA.
Okay,
They'll be on our agenda.
Okay. I
on the
just-
31st?
Yep. At 6.
Okay,
And
okay.
so before we segue, I guess, more into public comment, I just wanted to quickly touch upon the peer review, if that was okay, Mr. Chairman.
go ahead. Well, yeah, well, before you do that, Alicia had her hand up
Oh,
after Janet.
you're on mute, please.
Thank you. I'm okay. Janet covered a number of those things. Thank you.
Okay, all right, sorry, go ahead, Carly.
So on the peer review, as you know, we put together the RFQ, we sent it out. It was due today at 4. We got 1 proposal. So I'd like to send that to the board to review. Where time is of the essence, I don't know that we want to go back. I mean, we could go back out. I'm looking for some direction, maybe from Paul or some of the committee members as far as how you want to handle it. I mean, we just got it at 4. I haven't even had a chance to send it to the board yet, but I'm just looking for thoughts. But based on my conversation with the town planner, their request for peer review, they've been coming in real slow, meaning people are busy and there's a million projects going on. So I'm just looking for some direction from the board or Paul on how we should address that.
Direction from the board about what, Carly? Sending them out again or sending them to different people?
Yeah, or we sent out the list, Dan, DPW director sent it out to about 4 different firms, 4 to 5, and we got 1 back. So
Well, we're gonna have to increase our audience, I would expect.
I just weighing that against time. So Paul, do you have any suggestions on
Who was the firm that responded?
that? Green International.
Okay, I mean.
Could we do follow-up calls to the other people and tell them we're out of time?
I don't think they'll care, John, if they're busy.
Well, at least you'll know if they plan on responding.
Well,
True.
there was a deadline.
But there's a deadline with an RFP, right? I mean, that would,
Right.
Yeah, but sometimes you gotta prod.
Yeah, but then it's sort of unfair
but
to.
this is like a procurement issue, isn't it? Isn't
Yeah,
that the
I would
idea?
say so. Yeah.
So.
You can't go call somebody that had no bid because that's sort of,
Well, on consulting services, it's different. I think
Right,
Paul
it's-
can speak to that.
Yeah, you're not required to go through procurement
a
procedures.
bid process.
Correct.
All right.
We
But any
did
other
it as-
time, any other time you send out an RFQ or RFP and people don't respond and you call them, you really can't do that.
Right.
Right, so that's for like a standard 30B procurement. This consulting services are exempt.
All right.
So, but as a best practice, of course, we didn't just send it to one firm, we sent it to like several, so people could weigh in and offer a price.
You know, conservation did an RFP recently and we, sent it to a bunch of places and only got 1 response. I think that's partly the nature of our post-pandemic world now.
Yeah, and this,
People are, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Everybody's busy. Everybody's shorthanded and they're busy.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they won't even respond to a request.
And
So,
could
I
we just
guess-
have, Sam, have Dan talk to, Dan, we've worked with Green International before, whether for the planning board or for you guys, correct?
yeah, I've worked with them before and they've done a great job. And I would kind of echo what's been said. It's the middle of summer. It was kind of a quick turnaround for the proposals. So I wasn't surprised. I guess I wasn't so surprised that we only received 1, given that factor. But like you guys said, I could reach out to the other firms we sent it to and just check in, since it's, like you said, it's not tied to a procurement requirement, to see if we can get another 1 or 2.
Let's Carly, the response we got, you haven't looked at it yet?
I glanced over it about 10 minutes before the meeting, so my
Is
plan
it,
was to send
is
it
it-
out to you guys tomorrow, first thing.
is it within the realm of probability? Let's look at it that way. I mean,
Absolutely.
is it affordable? Is it within our range? Is it going to do what we want it to do?
So the affordability, that's not on us, that's on NOAA, but I mean, it looked very comprehensive. It addressed all our points. We've worked with this group before. So I would just like the board to take a look at it before we make any final decisions.
I would wonder what the probability of a secondary bidder would be. You know?
I mean, I personally, I think Green International is certainly a reputable firm. They're capable of doing it. I don't see why we don't just go with them.
I mean, conservation, we had to go with the single bidder we had for our RFP. And it was some sleazy group called BSC Group, I think. But, yeah. So if we've worked with them before, I'd be comfortable moving ahead since time seems of the essence.
I agree. I think if we have a good proposal back and it covers everything we need, stop there. Let's turn the page. Mike, what do you think?
I agree.
John?
I mean, Dan seems to approve of these guys and
Yeah.
roll with it.
Jess, you think?
Yeah, I'm on board.
Ron?
You could extend it for another week, but
What's the point?
just to see if you get responses, any more responses, or maybe
These
you
companies,
think it's hopeless?
Yes.
I think these companies, if they're going to respond by a deadline, they're going to, and if they can't by the deadline, they're not thinking, it's not on their radar anymore.
I agree. So
All right.
listening to what everybody's saying, Carly, I think we just ought to pull the trigger on this one.
Okay, so I'm going to send it out either tonight or first thing in the morning. And Stephanie, I'll make sure that you all get a copy of it, obviously, and Paul. So I'm glad we had this discussion tonight, because I want to get them on board so they can start looking at that traffic study.
Yeah, they're going to cover all the peers, all peer reviews.
Yep,
Fair enough.
yep.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Please.
seeing as how no one's really seen their proposal yet, the applicant would just respectfully ask that when we do obtain a copy of it, if we can provide any comments if we see potentially that it's gone beyond what the board had scoped out, or if we have any concerns. If I don't know what the price is, but you know, if it's outrageously high, if we could just reserve the ability to make a comment as to kind of the scope and the amount. Because we're all talking about something we haven't seen yet, so.
We can do that. But I should point out, from your own words, time is of the essence. And 1 out of 5 pretty much says you're rowing a boat with one oar, if you get my drift. Okay, so by all means, you have every right in the world to look at what you're going to pay for. I don't question that at all. But what are your options? What are our options?
Appreciate that.
Okay. Now, public questions, public comments. Any?
There with the Groton Shelley Road.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, about 7:17, conversation started to move to the topic of sewer near Isaac Lane. I think Janet from was speaking, and I'm so sorry, the representative from NOAA. I was wondering, like, what are they talking? Like,
I can't understand, but every third word. What?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Same.
let me try again. Okay, so there was discussion a few minutes ago, Janet and I think Annika. I don't know Annika's last name. All right, so they were speaking about the sewer near Isaac Lane and that they needed to call somebody to get something done. What were they talking about?
Janet, you want to take a shot at that?
If, Sarah, through the chair,
Good.
All right, Sarah, what ends up happening is if they are going to touch any area around Isaac Lane, that's home owned by the Housing Authority. And because the Housing Authority isn't a town entity, it is the state entity, which is directed by the DHCD. Anything that is going to affect any of the properties, it has to be approved by DHCD. So if they're going to be looking at, again, any type of connection, they've got to work with the Housing Authority as well as DHCD to get the approval. DHCD, they're still working from home, so they go ahead and it takes a while, for responses to be done. So, does
Thank
that
you.
help?
It does. Can I follow up?
Go right ahead.
Okay, why do they need to be involved though? Because I thought the sewer line looks like it's going through John Riley Road, not Isaac Lane.
I don't have, again, I don't have that answer. Someone from NOAA. Go ahead, Taylor.
Taylor?
Yeah, that's correct. We're not touching any part of Isaac Lane. We are connecting to the town-owned sewer line that's on Noah's property.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
Sarah, is that all right?
Through Riley Way, correct?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
You're connecting through Riley Way?
I'm not, I'd have to confirm with Dan, and it looks like Dan just popped online about the direction of flow on that line.
No, yeah, the connection is on 65 Fitchburg Road property into a sewer easement that the town has over 65 Fitchburg Road property. The flow is towards Tiny's, the opposite direction of John Riley Road, if you want to talk about flow.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I'm glad you confirmed that. Thank you.
Where's it tying in, Dan?
It's tying in on the north, it's the north side of the 65 Fitchburg Road property. I can't remember. I think it's at a manhole location in the easement. So we have an existing gravity sewer through that area.
Is it private property or is?
It's 65 Fitchburg Road property, and the town sewer line is cross country going through an easement on the north side of the property. So it's Noah's property.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
So DHCD would not need to be involved in this.
Okay. We're good.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll just follow along. Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions, comments? No. Wow. All right. There being none, I guess, Carly, we'll just continue on this meeting until the 31st.
Well, so that was my next question. The 31st is really slated to hear a presentation from the Affordable Housing Committee and the Affordable Housing Trust. But I guess if we could continue it till that meeting, if we have any questions, with the peer review selection process, we could have that as a placeholder, and then if we don't need it, we can go to the next meeting in September. Does that sound okay?
That sounds good to me. How about the rest of you guys?
So does ZBA itself have a meeting on the 31st, or are we invited to this other meeting?
It's going to be our meeting.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
it seems unusual, Carly. Is it time sensitive? Is there to have 2 meetings in the month?
So I had sent an email to the whole board about this last week, or 2 weeks ago. The Affordable Housing Committee and the Affordable Housing Trust want to make a brief presentation to the ZBA on the need for affordable housing and what both committees have been doing over the past couple of years to get to this point where we're at.
So that'll be it.
I think, Mike, it's going to be like a show and tell, and then we're just going to piggyback any comments on the peer review contract for that meeting, and then off we go. Then we're
Okay,
back
yeah,
to
I
our-
mean,
back to
I'm
our regular
guessing
schedule.
that this is going to somehow tie to what we're
Mhm.
talking about, even if it's in an adjacent way, but You know,
Right.
we're talking about all affordable housing units here, so that sounds good to me.
Okay,
So I mean, my recommendation would be to continue the hearing till August 31st. And again, if there's, I hate to meet, and if we had an issue we needed to discuss, not be able to discuss it.
Right.
So we may not need to discuss it, but we can continue it again at that August 31st meeting, if that's the case.
Do you have to publish an announcement that we're having that meeting?
Well, just a regular meeting agenda. Doesn't have to go in the newspaper or anything.
Because we're in a regular, the public meeting hearing's already been advertised,
Yeah,
so it's always now being continued.
right.
yeah, it is.
Hmm?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
open.
it's continued.
I know it has been advertised, so all we do from now on is
Just
continue
continue.
it. It doesn't need to be re-advertised in the newspaper.
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
just for a point of clarification, when you're speaking of the 31st, are there two separate things? Is it the Affordable Housing Trust doing a presentation to the zoning board overall, or is it under the umbrella of this? And then are you secondly saying that that's going to happen at your meeting on the 31st? And then you're also scheduling a continuation of this hearing if there's any wrap up for peer review? I'm not quite certain.
What we're doing is we were basically invited into hearing this presentation about all affordable housing, as I understand it. And then what we were doing was piggybacking in any questions or comments we had on the peer review contract.
So again, would that be two agenda items? One is just a presentation by
Yes.
AHT, and then one is a continuation of the,
And then we continue back onto our regular schedule again.
okay, thank you for that clarification.
Did I get it right, Carly? Okay,
Yeah.
all right, good.
And that's going to be via Zoom?
Yes, ma'am.
Via Zoom.
Yes, ma'am.
6
All right.
o'clock.
That
6
being-
o'clock.
6 o'clock, that's right, John.
Yeah, well, it wasn't in the letter, so.
All right,
So we would need a motion right now to continue this public hearing until August 31st, 2022 at 6 o'clock via Zoom.
who wants to do it?
I make a motion to continue the public hearing for an application for a comprehensive permit MGL 40B Section 20-23 Neighborhood of Affordable Housing, Inc. at 65 Fitchburg Road to Wednesday, August 31st at 6 p.m. via Zoom.
Second,
All in favor signify by saying aye. Voice vote.
Aye. Ronnie Philippo, aye.
Good.
Mike Gibbons, aye.
Jessica,
Carmella
Dugan,
side.
That's you two. All right. Sam Goodwin, aye. We will continue it. All right, very good. Ladies and gentlemen, if there's nothing else, I think we will move to adjourn.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we get a
Thank you.
motion?
motion,
Second.
so moved to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All.
Thank you. Thank
Good
you.
night,
Good
everyone.
night, everyone.